When I stood there in that second-hand dress, surrounded by laughter and whispers, I could feel every sneer cut deeper than the next. My own family, the people who were supposed to love me most, couldn't hide their mockery. My mother looked at me with that familiar disappointment, shaking her head as if marrying for love instead of money was the most foolish thing a woman could do. My sister, dressed in her designer gown, leaned over to her friend and whispered, loud enough for me to hear, "She's marrying a man no one's ever seen. Probably made up, like her dignity." The laughter that followed still echoes in my head. I clenched my trembling hands together and tried to keep my smile steady. I told them he was on his way. I told them he had an emergency meeting, but they didn't believe me. Why would they? My family measured worth in brands, in cars, in bank balances, and by their measure, I had none. My father raised a glass of champagne, smirking, to our daughter, who never fails to surprise us with her imagination. The hall erupted in polite chuckles. My chest burned, but I stood tall. They didn't know him. They didn't know the man I'd fallen in love with, the one who'd seen me when no one else did. I met Ethan by accident, quite literally. I was working as a waitress at a small cafe downtown, trying to pay off student loans. One rainy evening, I bumped into a man rushing out the door, spilling coffee all over his expensive-looking coat. I apologized 100 times, expecting him to yell or storm off like most customers did when they saw a cheap uniform. But instead, he smiled. "Coffee's warm. At least it's not ice water," he said with a grin that made my heart flutter. That night, he stayed longer than usual. He told me about his love for quiet places, for simplicity, for people who didn't wear masks. I told him about my dreams, to be a writer, to travel, to build a life where love mattered more than money. We met again, and again, until it became impossible not to fall in love. He never told me much about his work, only that he managed a few companies overseas. I didn't care about details, his actions spoke louder than words. He treated me like I was rare, something my own family never did. But now, standing in that lavish wedding hall they'd rented, for formality, I felt that old shame creeping back. Every eye judged me, my cheap bouquet, my unbranded shoes, my trembling hands. My sister Olivia whispered to my cousin, "I bet she hired some random guy from the street. Maybe he changed his mind once he saw this circus." My mother sighed dramatically. I told her fairy tales don't come true. Just as the officiant looked at me, ready to ask if we should proceed, I heard the sound. The slow, commanding growl of an engine, not just any car, but something powerful, expensive, unmistakable. Heads turned. Whispers spread like wildfire. The doors opened, and there he was. Ethan, dressed in a perfectly tailored black tuxedo, his presence filled the room before he even spoke. His eyes locked on mine, calm, certain, and proud. For a moment, everything went silent. My mother's glass froze midair. Olivia's mouth fell open. The same guests who laughed a moment ago now whispered his name. Yes, they recognized him. Ethan Knight, the billionaire tech investor whose face had been on business magazines and charity covers. The man worth more than half the city, and the one I had simply called Ethan. He walked toward me slowly, his gaze never leaving mine. When he reached me, he took my hands gently and kissed them. "Sorry I'm late, my love," he said, his voice soft but carrying through the stunned silence. "I had to finish signing the foundation papers, the one we talked about, for women who deserve a second chance." The gasp that followed was almost satisfying. My father straightened his jacket awkwardly, my mother turned pale, and my sister dropped her champagne flute, the glass shattering across the marble floor. Ethan turned to them, his tone polite but firm. "I'm sorry for keeping you all waiting. I'm Ethan Knight, but more importantly, I'm the man lucky enough to marry your daughter." He looked around at the stunned crowd. "I understand there were doubts. I hope I've cleared them." The officiant, almost trembling, cleared his throat and began the ceremony. Ethan held my hand through it all, his thumb brushing gently over my knuckles, reassuring me that everything was real. When he said, "I do," he looked at me like I was the only woman in the world. And when I said it back, the tears I'd been holding in finally spilled down my cheeks. As he slipped the ring on my finger, a delicate band with a simple diamond, not showy but beautiful, he whispered, "You were perfect before they ever knew who I was." After the ceremony, we walked through the crowd, hand in hand. My family tried to recover their composure. My father laughed too loudly, saying, "Well, I guess I underestimated you, sweetheart." My mother smiled, her tone suddenly sweet. "Ethan, dear, I had no idea you were that Ethan Knight." Ethan smiled politely but coldly. "I didn't think it mattered. Love isn't about who I am, it's about who she is. And she's everything." The tension was sharp enough to cut the air. My sister tried to compliment my dress, the same one she'd mocked earlier. "You look simple, but elegant." Ethan chuckled softly. "That's exactly what I love about her. She doesn't need to hide behind glitter." As we walked outside, the cameras flashed. Photographers had somehow gotten wind of the wedding. Ethan's name attracted attention wherever he went. He guided me gently into the sleek black Rolls-Royce waiting outside. Inside the car, I finally let out the breath I'd been holding. "I can't believe you came," I whispered. He turned to me, eyes soft. "I told you I would never let anyone make you feel small again. Not even your family." He took my hand, kissed my knuckles, and smiled. "From now on, you're my world." The drive to our new home felt like a dream. When we arrived, I realized it wasn't a mansion in the city. It was a beautiful lake house surrounded by trees, quiet and peaceful, just like the places we used to talk about. "This is where we'll start our life," he said. "Not in gold or marble, but in peace." I cried again, not from sadness this time, but from the overwhelming relief of finally being seen. But peace didn't last long. 2 weeks later, my family showed up uninvited. My mother brought a box of expensive chocolates and fake smiles. "We just wanted to see how you were doing," she said sweetly. My father nodded, and perhaps discussed some business opportunities. Ethan invited them in with calm politeness. He poured tea, listened to their small talk, and waited. I knew what they wanted: money, connections, something they'd never earned. My sister finally broke the polite silence. "Ethan, I heard your company's expanding into luxury properties. I'm in real estate, maybe we could collaborate." Ethan's eyes flicked toward me before he answered. "I appreciate your interest, Olivia, but I prefer to work with people who believe in others before they believe in numbers. The way you treated your sister doesn't align with my values." The silence that followed was crushing. My mother tried to recover, laughing nervously. "You know how siblings are, just teasing." Ethan's voice hardened. "Teasing? You humiliated her at her own wedding." My father shifted uncomfortably, clearing his throat. "Let's not dwell on the past." Ethan smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. "You're right, let's not. Because the past is what separates the people we keep close from the ones we leave behind." That was the last time they came uninvited. Months passed, and life became everything I had dreamed of. Ethan supported my writing, encouraged me to publish my stories. He would read them late at night, holding me close as the fireplace crackled softly. One evening, as I looked out over the lake, I saw the reflection of the woman I'd become: stronger, freer, finally unashamed of where I came from. Ethan came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. "Do you regret anything?" he asked quietly. I thought about it. "Maybe just one thing," I said. He turned me around, eyes concerned. "What's that?" "That I ever let them make me doubt my worth." He smiled softly. "They'll regret that for the rest of their lives." And he was right. Because a year later, when my first novel became a bestseller, the one inspired by that very wedding, my family called again. My sister's voice trembled on the phone. "We're proud of you," she said. I smiled. "Thank you. But I don't need your approval anymore." Ethan and I hosted a charity gala that same month, raising funds for women rebuilding their lives. As I stood on stage, I looked out at the crowd, the same people who once laughed, now listening. I told them, sometimes, the people who laugh at your dreams are the ones too afraid to chase their own. But never forget, you're worth more than their opinions. When the applause filled the hall, Ethan took my hand, eyes shining with pride. In that moment, I realized something profound. Revenge isn't about hurting those who hurt you. It's about rising so high that their cruelty can't even reach you anymore. And as the lights dimmed and the music played, Ethan leaned in and whispered, "I told you, my love, you were never ordinary." I smiled, tears glistening in my eyes. "And you made me believe it." That night, Under a sky full of stars, we danced like the world had finally made sense. Because it had.